Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take the Black Live, the one, the only, the singular, the unico show that dares to talk about things like sci-fi, fantasy, movies, books, horses, swords, space lasers, robots, and such every week, every Wednesday, every 2 p.m. CST time period, coming at you live and here. Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Selcke. I'm the editor of winterscoming.net. I'm here with Daniel Roman, who is not wearing
Hello.
glasses for the first time since I've known him and thrown me off a little bit. Daniel,
That's right.
what what do you have to say for yourself?
I have to say that, like a jungle frog that is brightly colored to warn off predators, I came here with the intention of keeping everyone off balance today and
Hmm.
wary that things could be different. But no, I'm wearing contacts, and yeah, I guess I've never worn them on the stream. So, surprise, I may or may not be the same person. But how are you, Dan? How are all of you out there?
I told you I'm flustered. It is interesting when you know someone for your entire kind of relationship with glasses or without, and they switch. It throws you off a bit. But I'm already used to it. You look
Surprise.
good. I've had the laser eye
Why, thank you.
surgery many years ago. I never looked back.
Ooh,
Um, oh yeah, the LASIK baby. You gotta get it. And
okay.
hello everybody for showing
Gotcha.
up.
You're a cybernetic man.
Yeah, Neuralink long before that was a thing. Hello, JP. Hello, Rick Garfield, Martha, Robert, Andrew, Fancy Fan. Good to see you guys. Um, as always, we have lots of fun things to talk about, starting with some good news from Westeros before we dive into some
Oh,
more disturbing, possibly despair adjacent news. Daniel, did you know
ah,
that House of the Dragon, the second season of the Game of Thrones prequel show, is reportedly going to start doing reshoots in February? Why, that's tomorrow.
that is tomorrow. I think I had heard this because some website that I may read occasionally, winteriscoming.net, did report on it. Um, so I was aware that they were happening, but I don't really know too much the details. So what do we
Mhm.
know about this, Dan? Are these extensive? They must be on the smaller side given how close we are to releasing, right? What are the
Yeah,
deets?
there are no deets, just that they're happening. Pretty common. I feel like sometimes if you hear
Yeah.
there are reshoots going on, you panic and think they're going to change everything, but they're very common practice. You shoot a season of TV. And again, House of the
Yeah.
Dragon dodged bullets Matrix-esque by being able to shoot through the strikes, both of them, because they were in
Yeah.
England. And then they ended in time before the reshoot period, which could have complicated things if they had to shoot them elsewhere. So
Yeah.
it just dodged bullets left and right that show during second season. Got lucky, I guess. And by the way, I'm not the only one. Andrew is also thrown off by your lack of glasses. Robert agrees with me that LASIK is great. Have you ever considered LASIK?
Sorry, Andrew. I have I don't well one I have we're getting into just some eye stuff. I have astigmatism, so I don't know how
Gotcha.
easy it would be to do that. But I also have a deep and abiding mistrust of lasers going into my eyes and how that might affect them when I'm 50. So yeah, I
Oh,
haven't
fair enough.
taken the plunge. Maybe one day I have considered it. It seems like everybody I know who's gotten their eyes lasered is real happy about it. So
I'm
there's
just gonna
that.
say, God, it's been like 15 years now. Not a day goes by. I've had to think about glasses or contacts. Also, just do what I did when
Boom.
I get it done. No lasers, drill, opening up my eyelid and taking it out and replacing it with
Oh,
stuff. And I was awake. So just do that.
wait, what? They drilled and took out your eye?
Well, I don't know
That
exactly
can't, you
what they
must be
did because
trolling. That can't be
no, I'm
true.
not. There were no lasers involved. When I did the surgery, it was quite a
Oh,
few years
God.
ago. They hadn't developed the new fancy non-invasive kind they have now. I remember they put me on a thing. They like put things over my eyes. I heard like a drill that had to go in and like lift it back and kind of manually adjust it and then put it back. Um, and then I spent like a week with a dog cone over my eyes, and then I was fine.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Andrew Haley here and say I'll just keep my glasses, or in this case, contacts. And that movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, he gets different
Yeah,
eyeballs so he
it
can
was very
sneak
much
past
like that.
security. And I've got to say, I never watched that and was like, man, I wish I could do that. So I'm going to keep rolling with my damaged, weak eyes. But I'm
Okay,
happy for you that it's worked out and that you're a superhuman now.
I respect
Um,
that. Also, in other
yeah.
little House of the Dragon news, again, that sounds frightening. Keep your glasses. Yeah, there are options for everybody. Um, in other
Good
good
transition.
news from from House of the Dragon, Millie Alcock, who played young Rhaenyra Targaryen in House of the Dragon, is officially cast as Supergirl in the new DC cinematic universe. Good for her. That's
Yeah.
nice. Apparently, she was James Gunn's like the first person he thought of when started to cast this role. She flies around on dragons, flying around on of her own power. Can't be that different. So cool. I'm glad that she got a nice little franchise to stick her teeth into after House of the Dragon is over.
Yeah, I think so. This is probably like the biggest House of the Dragon adjacent news of the past week. And I think this, I am not a huge DC stan. Like I'll
Mhm.
watch a DC movie if it's
Sure.
on, but I've always liked Marvel more. But it is exciting to think of someone like Millie Alcock coming into the DCU. I feel like what few casting announcements we've gotten so far, like Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane,
Yeah,
David Corenswet as Superman, they've all been exciting. So it feels like the casting, they're cooking right now, and they're teaming up with some really good people. So I love that Millie Alcock got this role. I can't, it makes me, I'm gonna go see this movie, even though I may or may not have seen it otherwise, just because she's in it. So that kind of
nice.
speaks for itself.
I
Yeah,
don't know if
love
I'll
to
see
see
it or
it.
not. I'd like because she's
You're not
young.
gonna go
She's
see it for Millie?
it depends on if it's good or not. I can't
Okay.
think of an actor I like so much. I would go see a movie, even if the movie is like thought of badly or looks bad, just because they're in it. Does anybody out there have an actor like that who, even if the movie
I
doesn't look like
do.
it appealed to you, would go see it? I don't think there is one. Is there? I
For
don't.
for me, you're gonna scoff at this because it's
I
probably
won't. I
somewhat
promise.
predictable. Okay, so for me, it is Toby Stevens, even though he doesn't really do a lot of
Oh,
movies. So he was one of the leads in Black Sails. He's now in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. He was in Lost in Space. I was just
right.
having this conversation with my wife last night that he's like one of both of our, like, I'd watch him in anything actors just because he's so great to watch. And I'm kind of looking forward to talking about Percy Jackson later in the show because that finale just happened, and yeah, some good stuff from him. But he's my one. I would go see him in anything.
Or Robert Harris, it's every Denzel Washington film, which, yeah, Denzel's great. I don't
Oh,
know. I bet there are
that's
a
a good
few
one.
stinkers in this catalog, though. I haven't seen every Denzel movie. But if I find an actor who's like this for me, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, good for Millie Alcock.
Okay,
She's
we're gonna
young.
hold you to
She'll
that.
have a good time getting a franchise under her belt. And that sort of
Yeah.
ends the happy House of the Dragon news. I wanted to turn next to something a little more dire, unsettling, dare I say, vaguely alarming, from A Song of Ice and Fire author George R.R. Martin, who, has written the Songs of Fire books, creator of Game of Thrones, consultant on House of the Dragon, and occasionally he takes to his blog, which he calls his not a blog. Does that make a difference? I don't know.
Mhm.
Consult a philologist. To kind of share just I don't know, thoughts, ruminations. He used to do it a lot more back before he was really famous, and now it's a little harder because when you're as big as he is and noted, everything you say gets analyzed by folks like us. Which, case in point, here we go.
Yeah.
He wrote
Yeah.
a pretty uh he's upset. He wrote a post the other day about his 2023, what his year was like, when he said that 2023 was a nightmare of a year for the world and the nation, and for me and mine, both professionally and personally. I am very glad that it is over. Unfortunately, so far 2024 looks to be even worse. He talks about a lot of just general things he's upset about.
Mm.
Wars happening, can't blame him there. The
No, not at
prospect
all.
of an orange fascist returning to the White House and installing himself as dictator, also a little upsetting. He even gets into sort of fan discourse, the way that he used to enjoy talking about movies, TV shows, books online. And I'm not going to do the voice, by the way. That would be disrespectful at this juncture. Um,
I
saying that,
good
say that
call.
yeah, I think so. That it used to be fun talking about our favorite books and films and having spirited debates with fans who saw things different. Now social media is ruled by anti-fans who would rather talk about the stuff they hate than the stuff they love and delight in dancing on the graves of anyone whose film has flopped. Talking about how he's lost a lot of friends and colleagues in the past year, including sci-fi writer
Yeah,
Howard Waldrop, whose death hit him very, very hard. He is, a 75-year-old man. So I get it's not unbelievable that some of his social circle is starting to die off, but it is, and that's very
yeah,
hard. Saying, I look around and it seems as though my entire generation of SF and fantasy writers is gone or going. Only a handful of us remain, and for how long, I wonder. I know I have forgotten people in the list above, and maybe that is the destiny that awaits us all, to be forgotten. Bleak stuff, Daniel. Um,
yeah,
and then there's a very nice effort. I'll put a link in the chat when I get a chance, of people who have put together like a "Say Something Nice to George" campaign, where they're gathering
yeah.
testimonials from fans who have something nice to say about his work, about his influence on them. They will kind of try to get in front of him somehow. And I guess my basic thought slash starting questions are, hope he's all right. Um,
Yeah.
I hope this is just, I'm not a journaler. I've never been a journaler, online
You're
or
missing out.
otherwise. Sorry.
I said you're missing out. Journaling's great. It's great for your mental health, Dan.
Are you sure? Because George R.R. Martin just did a journal entry where it looks like he's living on the edge. So maybe this is just, I hope this is just a passing mood that goes away, not an indication of something worse. And then the obvious question we have to ask, the more practical question, is if 2023 was a whole nightmare year for him professionally, is that code for I didn't write a word of the Winds of Winter?
Um, okay, so a few thoughts with this. One is,
So shit.
George does these, like you said, these posts pretty much every year where he kind of reflects on the year. And I think it's pretty fair, a lot of the stuff he's saying here. I'm sad for him that he's feeling how he's feeling. Something that he said in the post was talking about how he's often told about the responsibilities of being a famous author with a large platform and how his words
Mhm.
matter to people and stuff like that. But also, like, he feels like, how true is that? He wonders, has anything he ever wrote on his not a blog actually changed someone's mind?
Oh no.
So I think a lot of the things he's saying are really pretty legit and probably felt by a lot of people. The 2023 being a nightmare year for the world and the nation type of thing. Like, there are a lot of people who probably share those sentiments with everything that's going on right now. His talking about the generation of sci-fi and fantasy authors, like Howard Waldrop, talking about how that hit him hard. That is the author who wrote The Night of the Cooters, which is the short film that George R.R. Martin just did with Vincent D'Onofrio.
A great name, yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty understandable, a lot of this stuff. I think it's, we're all human, and I wasn't alarmed. I just feel bad for him that he's feeling down. As far as the professionally thing, obviously that is a curious question because we haven't heard a lot about what he's up to in the past year. My couple of thoughts here are: one, I don't take this to mean he hasn't written a word of The Winds of Winter. Like, I'm sure he's been working on it and he's had good days and bad days, just like any
He
year.
said
But maybe it's been a little less productive than 2022
20.
or 2020, which he said he
2020,
was
he
on a
said, was
roll
like a
that year.
tremendously productive year. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there's got to be the wins is probably in that equation somewhere. My
Hmm.
other thing I wondered about is the status of whatever he's got going on with HBO with the spin-offs and stuff like that for Game of Thrones.
Mm.
Just knowing that Warner Brothers Discovery is going through this enormous overhaul right now. And we don't really know all the deets about how that might have affected the projects George has in development. But he did hint that the merger did affect that, at least some of them. You know, we don't know if this is because of the merger for other reasons, but like the Sea Snake was a live action series that is now being developed for animation. I think
Yeah.
there was one of them that was put on that was shelved for now. I don't know if that was Nymeria or one of the other ones, but so those are the questions I'm asking here. So wins is maybe relevant, and also what's going on with the spinoffs. Um, what do you think, Dan? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I think Martin, my instinct to respond to your thing about the spinoffs is that he's too old in hand at TV to get that upset about a spinoff
Yeah,
changing form or falling through. He said he
I
seems
think that's true.
very realistic about television whenever he's written about it in the past.
Yeah,
He's always like, these things happen. I've been wearing this game for like 40 years. This
yeah,
changes, you dropped through. I never had a script published. I can't see any spin-off news doing this to him. Wins is a more monkey on the back situation that he's been dealing with for years, and more a personal project. Like it's a
yeah,
book, it's just him. So I could see that doing it.
yeah,
In terms of just like the outpouring of earnest emotion, it makes people like me uncomfortable. People like me being
yeah,
white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who are taught, I think, in a healthy way from an early age to just swallow it all, scream into a pillow, and move on with your day. Like it may it like very direct outpourings of emotion always, I think, make some people, me included, a little uncomfortable. That's why the kind of whole social media culture, everyone's talking about what they feel all the time. I've never really liked it because I don't want to hear this. Um, and that's why, of course, I hope I hope this is just, venting, uh, and that he has people behind the scenes who he loves and other folk he can talk to make sure it's nothing more than that. Also,
yeah.
I
I
will
mean,
I have one more thing I want to say before I turn the floor over to my esteemed colleague Dana Ronan. Um, I, it also I can't put myself in the head of someone like George R.R. Martin, who is wildly famous and whose every word is dissected and looked up at people like me.
yeah.
Um, I do think it's interesting, like the lines about, I'm told I have a platform and power, but no word I've ever said I can't see proof that it changes anything, or the lines about how talking about your favorite TV and movie shows used to be fun, but now social media is dominated by these people who delight in dancing on the graves of failed films, which there definitely is that contingent, no question about it.
Yeah, that's true.
And just, I guess I've been working online for quite a few years now, and I've gotten cynical about the ability to have much in the way of meaningful human community just online. Like there's always those people who are just there to troll or just there to bring everyone down, kind of for the fun of it. And I guess I wonder if my advice in that situation is, and again, I don't know a situation, but I think of like David Benioff and Dan Weiss, the Game of Thrones showrunners, who just said we unplug, and that seemed to me a very healthy choice
Well,
for that case.
I think it's somewhat different here because that is specifically they unplugged so that they could just keep focusing on what they're working on. You know, I imagine that George R. R. Martin is not spending his whiling away his days scrolling Twitter or something. Like he's an older guy. Like a lot of his writing he does on a computer that's not even connected to the internet, stuff like that. So, but I do think that in terms of how the fan communities have grown and changed, thinking back to early days, Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire fan communities, we're talking like Westeros.org, the Tower of the Hands. So, like, those were like forum communities. So,
Right.
that is different than like
True.
Twitter, where where one people, they can only say so much. So it's kind of like encouraging the most reductionist takes you can do in the amount of space you have. But I do think that the thing that struck me about what he said is people delighting in dancing on the graves of anyone whose film has flopped. I mean, I see that
Sells.
all the time on social media. So,
Oh
like,
yeah.
this is tricky because,
The
you
Marvels.
have to keep in mind his age for this, because he remembers a time, I'm sure, when it was mostly those smaller, you know, not mainstream, like before sci-fi and fantasy was mainstream the way it is now.
Yes.
It was a lot more, the debates were probably a lot more reasoned, I would say, than just where anyone's weighing in, this is crap because I didn't like it type of thing. But that's hard because that's a shift in the human relationship between social media and the internet. And without going too deep down that rabbit hole, I can empathize with him, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what there is to fix that.
Leave. Don't
Yeah,
be on.
pretty much. But
Or as
I do
Nicole
hope that he
said,
feels better. I,
yeah, me
I
too.
hope
Of
that
course I do.
2024 is a better year than he expects.
Or as Nicole says, gee, must be so hard to be a famous and rich boomer. It's a little tone deaf, which is also a perspective I think is perfectly valid to have after you read something like that. Um,
Well,
that's a thing, like putting
one,
your faith in
yeah,
strangers on the internet to be sympathetic. Ooh, it's dangerous. Ooh, dangerous game. Um,
yeah,
and like the ones
but I
who
think it,
are sympathetic can be as sort of misleading as the ones who are openly vitriolic. That's why I think
I
it's better
think
to
it's important.
unplug. That's just me.
I mean, I think it's important to keep in mind that this is his personal blog. It's where he's
Mhm.
always shared his personal feelings about what's been going on for him in his life and his career. And he's always been very honest about his cynicism and optimism when it
Mhm.
comes to, like, if you can see this in his work, like cynicism about the human nature to do the right thing, things like that. Like, he's always spoken kind of bluntly about these things. So, like, I hear what you're saying, Nicole. I don't find this tone deaf, because it's just an older man lamenting the times we live in, kind
Yes.
of. He's not complaining about how hard it is to be rich. He's talking about all of his friends being old and dying. And I think anyone who's had an older relative, or who, like, I can recall my own family members saying similar things to that as they got older and all their friends just started going. So I have empathy for him here, but I can understand how it might come off as a little tone deaf. So fair, Nicole.
I have empathy for him. There is sort of a charmingness about it because there is like a lack of cynicism in just laying it all out like this, which I do
Yeah,
think modern online etiquette would suggest you don't do as much. And maybe the fact that he did grow up in a different era where it wasn't about uh, Twitter, nay X, or the other way around, social media and online spaces, and this kind of thing was more common. Um,
yeah.
there's something touching about it too. So I'm touched. I'm empathetic. I'm a little bemused and interested, and I'm sure it'll all be fine. And look forward to the next blog post about a chocolate iron throne or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, like, his words have affected millions of people. So I hope that that's something he can find solace in, and hopefully the year turns up for him. And the next blog post is there's some good news coming his way or something.
Let's
But we
go
have
optimistic.
Let's go
I,
optimistic. We have more to talk about today. You want to move on to the next, or you have more to add to this, Dan?
Do I want to move on to the next topic, or do I want to continue ruminating on the despair of the aged? Let's move on, I guess. Daniel, one
Okay.
of the big shows I'm looking forward to, genuinely looking forward to, I hope it's good, coming up next month, February, on the 22nd, is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not the first, the second, the last. This live action remake of this mid 20s animated Nickelodeon show about,
Hmm.
epic journey. There's a war on. You're a bunch of plucky teenagers. You got to stop it. Inspired by East Asian cultures. A lot of heart, a lot of humor, a lot of action. Just a really show that is held. Ugh. But it was a
Yeah.
show that was made like 15 years ago. So now they're going to update things. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because I don't want to like really
Ooh.
drag the teenage actors that much for something they said
Okay.
offhand during an Entertainment Weekly interview. But I guess I'll pose a philosophical question to you and to the people watching. So this show involves a character named Sokka, who, if you watch it, you know who that is. He's kind of the comic relief character. Very fun. I remember him well from the show. Played by Ian Osley in the new one, the live action version. And in the start of the original series, he's like a 16-year-old kid, and he makes some sexist comments about women's versus men's roles. And in the show, he pretty quickly grows out of it. He meets characters, female characters, who show him how silly a viewpoint that is. And in the new show, they're making comments, specifically, I think, the actor who plays Katara, Sokka's sister, Kyo and Tio, that they took out the element of how sexist Sokka is. I feel like there were a lot of moments in the original show that were iffy. And then Ian Osley, who plays Sokka, saying that there are things that were redirected just because it might play a little differently in live action. And I guess my question for the group and for you is this a forward thinking move to bring this animated show from 15 years ago more in line with modern times and modern mores about feminism, sensitivity? Or is it removing an arc that clearly posited that this kind of sexism was inappropriate and bad? That was the point of the arc, for the sake of something else, whether that be political correctness or likability slash marketability. I wonder if you can guess where I fall
Um,
on it.
I'm gonna guess you fall on the you should leave Avatar: The Last Airbender alone because it was wonderful and perfect the first time.
Mm,
Uh, um, I think so. One, I didn't realize this was the actors. So the person who made the comment about taking the stuff of how sexist Sokka was out of the show is the actor who plays Katara.
his sister.
So I'm glad that you said we don't want to like really dissect things teenagers said
We
about their
really
roles
don't. It's
because
fine.
I was and this is kind of the perfect example of the sort of stuff George R. R. Martin is talking about, where people were in an uproar about this, and the quotes were flying around, and they were treating it like this is something that was said like a directive from the creatives behind the show, and like this is just an actor like ruminating on what they're noticing. So like knowing that, I'm like a lot less. I wasn't really worried in the first place, but like we just really need to see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a tricky thing bringing stuff in line with like modern sensibilities. I think that's almost different than like eh, looking at an arc and being like flawed characters are bad because we don't trust the audience to understand they're purposely flawed to teach us a lesson. Like
Right.
that's kind of like dumbing things down for your audience, which I think Netflix in particular has kind of a track record of doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the jury is very much out for me. The one thing I will say is what Ian Ousley, I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm saying your name wrong, said about that there are things that were redirected just because it might play a little differently in live action. I think that's really legit. And without having seen the scenes, I think that is a fair thing to wonder. I'm thinking specifically, and this is not quite a one for one example, but so in Final Fantasy VII in the remake, they had. Are you familiar, Dan, with Final Fantasy VII?
I did play both the original and the remake. Yes. And I'm
Okay,
curious
so
where you're going with this.
Okay, I promise there's a point. So there is a character for those listening who might not be familiar named Don Corneo, who is basically a lecherous, skeezy, gross dude who abuses women. And in the original game, he's like a little pixel guy. So when he is really creepy and gross, it's still like kind of a cute looking game. It's not a like really like skin crawlingly bad because of what you're looking at. When they
Okay.
remade it, they did it in these very detailed models. It gives you the creeps much more seeing an actual lifelike person acting like he acts. And I could see how looking at these things they might need to adjust some things for the medium of live action, but I hope that it's not doing it to pander to we're trying not to upset people with something that is purposely meant to be challenging. So that's my long-winded
Gotcha.
explanation.
I would
What's your
agree.
opinion?
I mean, that's basically it. I mean, I think it's, I don't know until I see it. That's kind of what it
Yeah,
sounds like to me, that they're sanding the edges off so it doesn't offend people as much, even though it's something
yeah.
that in the end I think is a pretty good message. That's my impression, but I don't know. These are just actors talking about it. And I think we're doing a decent job approaching it with the nuance and the precision that keeps it from spinning out of control into some kind of moral panic. And I think we deserve pats on the back.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Fantasy fan, I as well am very excited for Rebirth coming out next month. Um, so I did see one tweet about this that made me kind of be like, oof, is that a good point? We won't know till we watch it. But it was like, what does it say about us as a society that this
Society.
show, the animated show came out, 20 years ago or whatever. It's being remade 20 years later to be less challenging, trying to grab the same sorts of people who watched it the first time, but treating the story in a less challenging way, just because
Mhm.
Sokka's arc is meant to be a challenging thing. Yeah, the
Like,
jury will really be out till we watch it.
I read a really good comment on a Reddit thread about it, where it was a person saying, like, when I watched the original, I was like a kid. I was like 10 or something. And it was the first time I'd ever heard someone like use the word sexist in a cartoon. And it was kind of
Yeah,
powerful because boys my age fully talk like that on the playground all the time. And probably, I
yeah,
imagine still do, considering that Andrew Tate is a popular celebrity among like kids. And that seeing Sokka get over it was good for me. Like it was an early in my life sort of I don't know, like minor aha moment that led to a bunch of others down the line as he grew into an adult. So I thought that was pretty insightful. And I think there could be value in that kind of story being shown to,
oh sure.
if they're trying to seek an audience of younger people. They want a really wide audience for this. They want the adults, they want the families, they want the parents, they want the kids, they want everybody. And when you try to get that kind of audience, part of what you want to do, or what wisdom tells you should do, conventional wisdom, is make it as, I mean, in some ways bland, like kind of sand off the
Yeah,
things that could offend people to make sure that no one gets upset and turns off the TV. Now, I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it. I think a show like Game of Thrones
agree.
proved it, which made no allowances to not offend anybody ever and ended up being a giant kind of glass ceiling shattering hit. But again, we have failed not to go into what a couple of teenagers have said about a show that will premiere next month. We completely failed. We've done it anyway, but we'll see how the show goes. I hope it's good. And also, it's not a big part of the show anyway. Like, they only have 8 episodes compared
No,
to
it's
like
not.
20 original show. Maybe it's was cut for time. I don't know. So we'll see what happens when it comes next month. I'm still looking forward to it.
You kind of hit on something that I think is an interesting kind of quandary when you take something that is made to be a kids show. So like
Mhm.
part of what comes with that territory is like including lessons for kids. And I feel
Mhm.
like Avatar was really good at that. And your example of Sokka, like, this is how boys talk on the playground, like, and seeing someone have their mind shifted like that was probably really valuable for a lot of kids. Like, that's a great point. And I think when you broaden that net to be like our shows for everyone, you run into the danger of we're trying to reach everyone, so we're not really making it the vision kind of wanders, and it's not, the reason Avatar had those lessons is because it was aimed at kids, but it was so good that adults ended up enjoying it too, or kids became lifelong fans because there was enough value to keep coming back to it.
Mhm.
So that, and I do think, we saw some of this, I think, with The Witcher. I think Netflix does have a tendency of filing down edges to try to make things as broad as possible because that's what Netflix is concerned with, not making shows that are really hitting their specific niches, but like we need people to just have this on their TVs because that's good for our numbers. So I I'm not, yeah, not concerned about the comments, but I still have the same skepticism about Netflix doing this show. They basically need to just win me over every time they release something new at this point because they've done it so many times. So,
Well,
yeah, we'll
as
find out.
fantasy fan and number one Marvel fan point out, One Piece was a big hit. And I think they do have some goodwill after One Piece because that was a good live action
Yeah,
adaptation of an animated show
agree.
slash manga. So if they have two going, they might get a good reputation. Maybe they can flip things. But for right now, they're on the opposite. They're like on good probation, whatever that is.
Yeah, I agree with that. And One Piece is kind of a similar example almost, where like, so I have watched some of the anime at this point, and like Sanji in the One Piece anime, basically anytime Sanji and Nami are on screen at the same time, he's like thirsting over her. So like that's an
Ah,
example of like, the show has toned that down somewhat, the live action, because it's just more focused on telling a compelling story in live action, and it just doesn't need that. So I think that's a great example of a way to do it well, also, because it can almost get cringe watching the anime, just how like anytime
goddamn
she
anime is
says
so good.
anything, he's like, he gets hard eyes and he's falling over and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, One Piece did win them. Before One Piece, I would have had
Goodwill.
no hope it was going to be good.
True.
After One Piece, I'm like, maybe it'll end up being good because that one was great. Totally agree with everyone saying it.
Yeah, and let's move on because if we talked about the
Sure.
particularities of anime and how all of those conventions and mores got started, we would be here to the death of the universe because that's some complicated
True.
stuff. All right, let's move
Yes.
on. Daniel, what are into the section
Do it.
where we talk about what you, what everyone's watching. What are we watching? And I'll just ask you. You wanted earlier to go because I think yesterday was the finale of Percy
Yes,
Jackson, the Olympians. You said you wanted to talk about it. Why?
I
What
did.
about?
Well, the finale of Percy Jackson and the Olympians premiered on Disney Plus. I've been kind of like, I'm hesitant to say lukewarm on the show. Like,
I've
I've
been lukewarm.
enjoyed it. I haven't really loved it, but I don't really feel like I didn't read the books growing up, so, and that's another one where like, rather than making it broad, we're going to catch everyone. Like, it is meant to be accessible to kids, I think, that show, which is it
Mhm.
should be. That was kind of one of the things Rick
Nice.
Riordan said about this adaptation was he wanted it to be more accessible for kids because the movies weren't, he didn't feel, in the same way that he had intended the
Hmm.
books to be. um I loved the finale. Took me from like enjoying the show to like I want to rewatch the show because I enjoyed the finale so much. um I thought it had some great twists and turns. I thought it had some really excellent performances. Mentioned to Toby Stevens, my go-to bro, who I will watch in
I
everything.
figured, yeah.
Captain Flint. So yeah,
Man Crush
him
Wednesday.
opposite. Man Crush Wednesday, that's right. And Lance Reddick made his
He was
debut as
good.
Zeus. He was good. And watching the two of them together made me simultaneously be like, this is amazing. I'm also really sad we won't get more because Lance Reddick unfortunately passed away.
Right.
He only appeared in the one episode, but man, is he gonna be missed because what a great performance and great moment. So yeah, I liked it a lot. What did you think, Dan?
I liked it too. I'm not on the I'm gonna go rewatch the whole thing bandwagon. This was probably the strongest episode they'd done. I have been kind of lukewarm.
Yeah.
I thought it's been nice. Um, this benefited because they really kept the eyes on the prize the whole time he wants to reunite with his
Yeah.
mother. So that did have a good effect. And yeah, Lance Reddick as Zeus, like they didn't really have a lot of time for these
Yeah.
kind of big name actors who were playing the gods to spotlight them. They came in one episode, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda as Hermes. One episode,
Hmm.
it's Jason Mazzucata Kitapuda as Dionysus. But they kind of went in and out.
She's funny.
Lance Reddick
Yeah.
made the most of his scene as Zeus. He was very capped. He's very good. And you're right, it is a shame that he passed last year because if I was going to watch a second season of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, he would be a good selling point. And Toby Stevens too did a good
Yeah.
job. So I liked that. And I liked that they finished the arc that they set out to do. The whole series has been nice. It's been fine. This is one of the stronger episodes.
Yeah.
I guess had trouble throughout the season loving the three kids. I think it got off
Hmm.
to just a really galloping start. I didn't feel like really a lot of time spent with them developing their bond. Also, am I wrong? But so Percy and Annabeth are like middle schoolers, and then Grover the satyr's like 35,
I don't know
and
because
they're
again,
like
I haven't
the
read them.
golden trio of
Yes.
friends.
Yes, I think so. Yes, Grover is older. I think the implication is that satyrs age differently. So Grover is older, but he's still like for a satyr, he's younger. So he's around there. He's the middle school equivalent in satyr lifespan. But I could be totally wrong.
Okay.
That's just the impression I got.
Just saying, when I've been informed that he's 24 by Andrew, but looks 12.
Okay.
I guess
On
just don't think about it
point.
very much because when I heard
24
that, I'm
going on
like, when
12.
I was 24, then I want to hang out with 12-year-olds. Probably not. But don't think about it. It's Greek myth. It's different. Things happen differently.
Yeah, you're not a 24-year-old satyr, Dan. It's different. He just
It's
wanted to
very
go look
different.
for Pan. Now he can. He's come of age. He can go look for Pan.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's fair that it didn't super hook you. I really enjoyed a lot of stuff. I liked what they did with the twist. I don't know how into spoilers we want to go, but there was a twist with Luke that they changed a little for the show that I thought worked really, really well. And they also, so this, I know I harp on Black Sails all the time. I thought it was kind of funny
Do
because
you?
this Percy Jackson, I do. Where is it, Netflix? Maybe let us know when it's going to be on your
Oh
platform,
yeah.
like you said. Um, so Percy Jackson and the Olympians, there's a reason to talk about Black Sails with it, and that's that it is being showrun by two of the people who made Black Sails. So one of the showrunners of Black Sails and one
Ah.
of their lead producers are the showrunners of Percy Jackson. Bear McCreary is doing the music. He did the music for Black Sails. There are a few actors like Toby Stevens and Jessica Parker Kennedy, who played Medusa, who are showing up on this show. But they pulled a trick from Black Sails that I loved, and they put it in this finale, which is
Did
the
they?
flashback showing Percy and Luke training while you learn about their relationship. And
Hmm.
then coming back to that later in the episode, using that as a way to mirror their eventual confrontation, where you know a lot about their relationship. You know, Percy is going to be outclassed in a sword fight by him. So they did that in one of the episodes of Black Sails, where it shows flashbacks of two characters, one teaching another one how to sword fight, and then it cuts to the present, and it does a lot of heavy lifting for how their confrontation will happen in the present. So was a sucker for that in the finale. I was like, that's cool. And also really good writing for this show that has generally had like decent writing, but hasn't blown me away.
What you're saying
I thought the
is that
finale did.
the makers of Black Sails are hacks who reuse their ideas. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I am saying the opposite of that. I'm saying the makers of Black Sails are geniuses who know when a good idea will work and elevate an episode of television.
It was good. I liked it.
Boom.
I think our
Yeah.
counters did too. Boo Boo Boobo asked what we thought of Black Zeus, Lance Reddick being Black Zeus. Is that a great idea? And I can honestly say it didn't bother me at all. I thought he was the best part of the episode.
He
The
was
kind of
excellent. Yeah.
colorblind casting thing, when you see it, like it tends to get like made a big deal of beforehand. I can't believe they're casting this person who's not original race. But then if the actor is good, especially in a fantasy drama like this, it really doesn't matter at all because Lance Reddick was magnetic as Zeus, and that's really what
Yeah.
you needed in the scene. So for me, I had no
Yeah,
problem.
totally. And I think especially, a lot of times with these types of stories, like where it's gods in the modern day, I think there's a lot of leeway too to be like,
Right.
challenging assumptions of what classical interpretations of gods looks were. American Gods did that with a lot of the characters that
Yeah,
showed
certainly
up.
did.
So I didn't I thought that was fine. Like Lance Reddick's great, man. I'm never gonna
He was
complain about
very
Lance
good.
Reddick being in a thing. He was amazing. Um, and yeah, I thought the gravity, there's a gravity and a world weariness to his performance where like Percy's mouthing off and he just kind of like rolls his eyes. Like Zeus seems tired because like, he's been around for eons and
Oh
here's
man.
this like 13-year-old like mouthing off. And yeah, Andrew points out Greek gods can change their form. That was an interesting tidbit in the episode where they said, don't look at Ares' true form.
Don't do
I
it.
found very intriguing. I thought the Ares fight as well, they did a really good job with. And I was like, how is Percy going to beat this god of war? And I thought the way they did it, which I don't know exactly how that lines up with the book, was really, really cool where he basically outwitted him and then used his sea powers to make an opening.
I thought Edge, the WWE guy, gave one of the better performances as one of the gods, like consistently in
Same.
the season. He was around for a
He,
while. He actually
yeah.
got some time for us to get to know him and ended up liking him. Because
Yeah,
our colleague
totally
Bryce
agree.
Olin wrote a editorial we're going to publish in a second about them spotlighting the supporting cast more, using Lin-Manuel Miranda and Lance Reddick, Toby Stevens, the celebrity actors more. And a
Yeah.
thought occurred to me, like, if you cast people that big, part of the problem might be that they're just not available. Like, you can't get
Yeah.
Lin-Manuel Miranda to appear in multiple episodes because he's busy writing We Still Don't Care About Bruno or whatever he's going to do for the next Disney musical.
Yeah.
So, but Adam Copeland, Edge, he was on board. He's like, I don't have to go in the ring for a couple of months. Put me in.
Yeah, I can show up for a couple of weeks of filming. Lance
Mm-hmm.
Reddick, it's like he might have come in for a couple of days for all we know to do that scene because he just
Made a
has
count though.
the one scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good point. That might have been one of the door openers because there really are only three series regulars on Percy Jackson. It's
Yes.
Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. They are the only credited series regulars on that show. Everyone else is a guest star. So yeah, that's a really good point. I think you might be onto something there, Dan.
Sorry, Bryce. All right, Daniel, should we wrap up with the patented signature, world famous Wick News lightning round where we go through several stories we couldn't get to in the main body of the show and give our 20-second, no more, no less opinions on them?
Let's do it. We've come this far, we may as well embody our each of our inner Zeuses and do a lightning round.
Love it. In classic fashion, we're back to the old style. These are not put in any kind of order. So
Sweet.
let's just go and see what happens. Daniel, the second season of Squid Game apparently is coming to Netflix this year. Yay, nay?
Yeah. Um, Meh.
No,
Somewhere
really?
between
I'm so
yay and
into
nay.
it.
I I will watch it. Netflix has just burned my goodwill too much, especially with Squid Game, because they did a reality show that made me feel like it was a money grab reality show, taking people who are desperate for money and putting them in a Squid Game. Haha. But like that's the whole point of the show. So they kind of killed my excitement for Squid Game season two,
Huh.
is what I would say.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Your apology means more than anything Netflix could do to make, I don't know, not franchises that make me sad. Okay. So here is this one is kind of hilarious. So actor Tom Hollander, who was in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, Google him, you'll know who it is when you see him. So Tom Hollander was once sent one of Tom Holland, so as in Spider-Man, was sent one of Tom Holland's seven-figure Spider-Man checks. What are the deets here, Dan?
Pretty funny is what the details are. Just this actor who's is middle aged. They've worked in theater and film and TV their whole life. I remember the quote was that I was feeling a little smug, but this like big check I got from a theater job. Then I got a seven-figure residual check meant for Tom Spider-Man. I mentioned just thought this child makes more than I ever will in my life. Must have been funny. Also, how do you
So
mess
funny.
that up? Whatever software they're using over in Britain, get on this. All right.
What are you doing,
Daniel,
Disney?
this is an exciting one.
Yes.
This is the first photo from behind the scenes of The Last of Us Season 2, showing new and old cast and crew members gathered together ready to film another season of zombie bunching action. What do you think?
Yeah, so this is really exciting. This is not on set. They were at a restaurant. The restaurant
Oh,
shared this
sure.
photo. But here we've got so Craig Mazin, we've got one of the producers whose name evades me, Bella Ramsey as Ellie, Isabella Merced as Dina, and Young Mazzino as Jesse. So yay, The Last of Us season two is gonna start filming like any day now, and they're in Canada for it.
Nice.
Exciting. Okay, Dan.
Uh-huh.
Shadow and Bone overwhelmingly won Rotten Tomatoes poll of the best show of 2023.
That's pretty funny. Shadow and Bone canceled Netflix fantasy series. I believe the results were that Shadow and Bone had nearly 50% and no other show got above like 5. Clearly, this was inspired, I'm going to guess, by the fact that it was canceled, that people were coming together to
Yeah.
vote for it, to throw lemon juice in the eyes of Netflix and make their rage known. But it's pretty funny. Shadow and Bone, according to you, was not the best show of 2023. According to me as well. I didn't see it though. So, but I'm
Yeah.
glad the fans got some form of revenge, even if it was just through an online poll. I love it when
Yep.
I'm on the dot. Daniel, this is
Yes.
your area of expertise. The Wheel of Time audition tape hints at another member of the powerful channelers known as the Forsaken coming in season 3. Which Forsaken are we talking about?
Yeah, so Wheel of Time potential spoilers here. There was an audition tape that Watch Series, which is a great Wheel of Time fan site, thinks
You're good.
shows that Samael is going to make his debut in season three. Samael is a very important Forsaken who appears, he has kind of a pervasive threat that he represents in the book. We're going to see a few others. We're going to see Moghedian, probably Asmodean, and I guess Samael. So it's going to be an exciting season for the Wheel of Time,
Gideon.
which I took time over the buzzer to
Oh,
say.
long over.
Yes, that's right. I even spoke slowly
Hmm.
to delight in upending our well-honed system.
While we're young,
Okay,
Daniel.
so so here is a fun one. Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight in The Office, teamed
Okay.
up with Adam McKay for a Game of Thrones parody video about climate change.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It's Rainn Wilson and Creed Bratton, also from The Office, basically cut themselves into the scene from season 7 where they present the white to Cersei in the dragon pit. And it's all instead they're presenting her with evidence that climate change is happening and she denies it, which is pretty funny. They use clips from the real show. They're funny. Good little, it's
Yeah.
part of like a bigger push to educate folk about climate change by enlisted comedians. Funny. Go watch it. It was nice. A little pastel day, but it was
Cool.
nice. All right, Daniel. Ooh, these are working out very nicely, even though I didn't put them in order because you've watched this and I have not.
They
The
are.
second season of Severance is filming again after a strike inspired break, I guess, and we have photographic proof.
Yeah, this is the first image from behind the scenes of Severance season 2. Adam Scott there running, which I assume we're going to see him do quite a bit in this season. So this is Apple's sci-fi show about so you sever your office life, doesn't know what your at-home life does. Your at-home life has no memory of being in the office, and nefarious shenanigans ensue. Really excited for this. Season 1 was great, so looking forward to it. All right. Yeah. This is a weird one. I love this news. Okay, Dan. So, obviously, the person who would know about this. So, Dolly Parton says they're still working on a Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot, which I guess Dolly Parton knows about.
Yeah, I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer when I was much younger, and apparently country music legend Dolly Parton was a producer on the show and the original movie from 92, which I saw just recently for the first time. I didn't know that, and now I do.
Nice.
Like through her production, it's not like she was on the set making sure Sam Sugar knew how to stake someone, but she did it through her production company. And she says it's going to be a remake. Thanks, Dolly, for that information.
Yeah.
And that is Wick Live or Take the Black Live, our weekly show where we go over all things sci-fi, fantasy, TV, movies, news, and so on and so forth. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw, even if you didn't, go ahead and subscribe to us, hit the bell, listen to us in podcast form on Google Play, iTunes, wherever podcasts are available. Give us a like. You've been great at commenting. You know what? Come back to the video after it's published. Put a comment there too. Why not? You have things to say. We want to hear them. Just thanks for watching,
Right.
and hope you join us next week on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. in New York, noon on the West Coast, and for you mountain folk, 1 p.m. Also very early in Australia, like I think 7 a.m. For another live show here on the Facebook page or the YouTube page of Winter is Coming. So until next time, in the words of Dolly Parton, slaying 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. Bye.
Nice. Take care, all.